10-Minute Murder contains depictions of actual crimes. What you are about to hear is real and violent in nature. Discretion is advised. This is 10-Minute Murder.
Welcome to 10-Minute Murder, the brief and bingeable true crime podcast. I'm Joe, the host, and thanks for being here. If you're new to 10-Minute Murder, be sure to hit the subscribe button so that you stay up to date with all the new episodes. If you're subscribed, you won't miss any in the future, and you get them the moment I release them without delay. Connect with me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Parler. I'm pausing, giving you a chance to think your thoughts before I tell you, that's a joke. 10-Minute Murder is not on Parler. I mean, it's just barely on Twitter. I personally spend the majority of my social media time on Facebook and Instagram, so those are the two best places to find the show. And by the way, thanks to everyone that has rated and reviewed the podcast on Apple. A few episodes ago, I mentioned that we were close to a milestone, and we just blew right past that one. So now the next big milestone for us is on the horizon. So if you haven't had a chance to leave your 5-star review, go ahead and do that. Also, I post the reviews of 10-Minute Murder on the Instagram page, so your kindness will be forever enshrined. Okay, let's get to today's killer. Depending on how old you are, you may remember that well before there was Tinder, Bumble, or Hinge, if you wanted to find some lovin', you scanned the personal ads. There was even a cheesy song about it. If you like pina colada and getting caught in the rain, I would sing that for you if I could sing, but I can't, so I won't. And again, based on your age, that might have been your jam. The killer we're talking about today 100% would have used the online dating sites to meet people if those were available, to lure people into her mentally unstable world. And FYI, there's a lot to tell you about this killer, and I seriously doubt I can keep it in under the time. So let's get to it. This is Sheila K. LaBarre, better known as the Black Widow. LaBarre was born Sheila K. Bailey in Alabama in 1958. Sheila's sister, Lynn, said that she had been the victim of sexual abuse by their father, as well as other men, her father's friends, when she was a child. Sheila graduated from Fort Payne High School in 1976. She dreamed of leaving the small town and becoming a model, an artist, or a singer. Instead, she married a man named John Baxter, who was recently divorced with a young daughter. That daughter told her father that Sheila was giving her something to drink when he left for work every day that made her very sleepy, and then she'd shove her into a closet. When John found out, he kicked Sheila out of the house and divorced her after just 6 weeks of marriage. Desperate for love and a normal life, she met Ronnie Jennings. They married, and things began to quickly crumble. She was abusive to him, and Ronnie wanted a divorce, but Sheila refused. She attempted suicide by taking a handful of pills and hopped in the car. She had a serious accident, and that accident left her in a coma for a time. When she woke up, she told everyone of a story where she went to heaven and God spoke to her. She said God told her that he was sending her back to earth to be his avenging angel. Now, this is a pretty important detail because this is what would drive her actions and motivation from then on. This was her rationalization behind her future as the Black Widow killer. Her mission from God was to kill pedophiles and be a protector of children. Sheila was placed into a psychiatric facility, and while in that facility, she was sexually assaulted by an orderly. Her marriage to Ronnie dissolved, and she was once again single and ready to mingle. In 1987, Sheila was on the lookout for husband number 3, and she found a doctor named Wilfred LaBarre. They met by finding each other on a personal ad that Dr. LaBarre placed in a newspaper. His previous wife had died and he was pretty lonely. He was also in New Hampshire, which is a long way from Sheila in Fort Payne, Alabama. She didn't just send sweet love letters to the good doctor. She took naked photos of herself, stuffed those into an envelope, and sent those to him. Sheila went pretty hard in the paint, trying to lure in this man that she saw as successful and far from her small-town life. I don't have to tell you that her plan worked. You knew it would. Dr. LaBarre, who was, by the way, close to the same age as her father, sent for her. So she packed her things, hopped on a plane, and joined him on his 100-acre New Hampshire horse farm. She used her beauty and charm to wriggle her way into every aspect of his life. She made herself the office manager of his chiropractic practice, running off any employee that didn't treat her the way she felt that she needed to be treated. Sheila changed her last name to Labar, but not because they got married, because they didn't. Around their New Hampshire town, she was known to show a lot of skin. She was very attractive and she liked the attention. She'd greet delivery people at the door wearing next to nothing, so she earned the nickname Sheila the Peeler, because on occasion she would accidentally, and I'm using air quotes here, she'd accidentally drop what little she had on and be completely naked. Within a year, she had seduced her way into ownership of Wilfrid Labar's property and business. Although she was with Dr. Labar for 17 years, after he gave her power of attorney and ownership of his property, she told him not to consider himself as being in a romantic relationship with her anymore. She stopped sleeping with him and started living her life as a single woman. When asked why he let Sheila do all that to him, all he would ever say is, she had too much on him. It wasn't long before Sheila began bringing men back to the farm. One of those men she married, Wayne Enos, was a handyman doing some work at the clinic when she met him. In 1995, she filed a restraining order against him for attacking her. But later that year, they got married. They divorced the very next year after Wayne went to Dr. Labar and told him that Sheila said they needed to get rid of him. Wayne was scared of what she might do, so the doctor put him on a bus out of town and Sheila never saw him again. In 2000, at the age of 74, Dr. Labar died of what they believe is a heart attack. Sheila had him quickly cremated and no one at the time was suspicious. She then owned the farm outright and there was no one there to see what she was up to. Smoking marijuana and taking tranquilizers daily became her norm. She got involved with phone sex chat lines where she'd record the conversations. Many men came to the farm as lovers, farmhands, or both. She would tell people that they just up and left without a trace. Many were never seen again. And I know it seems pretty petty to mention it, but being one of the key ways that Sheila would lure people in, her looks had gone drastically downhill by this point. In the mid-2000s, Michael Deloge was a drifter from Connecticut, living in a New Hampshire homeless shelter. He was estranged from his family and a substance abuser. He needed a job. Sheila gave him one, as well as a place to live. Before he disappeared from the farm less than a year later, she forced Michael to make recordings admitting to sexually abusing children. In the video, scratches and bruises can be seen on his face. In 2008, a bone, a spent shell casing, and his driver's license were found in the farm's septic tank system. Sheila was alone again and using phone sex chat line personal ads where you leave messages for people you're interested in. If the men leaving the message sounded confident, they'd get deleted. She was looking for meek and easily manipulated. She found just that in 24-year-old Kenny County. He had a very low IQ and trusted everyone. They met for the first time at a fancy bar and had a few drinks. They decided to take the party to the back seat of her car in the parking lot where they had sex. A few days later, he left where he was staying to live on the farm with Sheila. He wasn't returning his mother's phone calls, so she sent the Epping Police Department to the farm for a welfare check. This made Sheila angry. He appeared to be fine, and he said he was fine, so the police left. Sheila made Kenny record a tape claiming that his mother had sexually abused him for years and screamed at him, telling him he was a pedophile while he vomited. Police officers happened to see Sheila in Walmart one day, pushing a wheelchair with Kenny as the passenger. He was all beat up and appeared to be burned. She wasn't grocery shopping, though. They were buying diesel fuel cans. She put them on top of Kenny's lap in the wheelchair and she pushed him around. Police asked him if he was okay. He didn't respond, and Sheila told him to shut up and mind their business. 2 days later, Sheila Labar stabbed Kenny to death and then used that fuel to set his body on fire. She called the police and told them that Kenny had left her and played them a tape with Kenny's voice confessing to a list of crimes. The next day, police made a surprise visit to the farm. They see she's out burning some things that look like personal belongings. Looking closer, they see bones at the bottom that appear to be human bones, human toes. They asked her what she was burning. She said it could be a rabbit or it could be a pedophile. They asked what was in the soot-filled trash bag nearby. She said it was Kenny and laughed. They got a forensic investigation team on the scene and they found evidence that many violent, bloody assaults had occurred there inside the house. It's unknown how many people Sheila LaBarre killed on that farm. The toes that were found didn't belong to Kenny or Michael Deloge. She was arrested, pled not guilty by reason of insanity. That was rejected, and the Black Widow was found guilty of killing Kenny and Michael.
Well, as the announcement came that the verdict was in, the families of LaBarre's 2 victims filed into the courtroom quietly, obviously nervous, because they weren't really sure how this was going to go.
How say you? Is the defendant sane and guilty, or is the defendant not guilty by reason of insanity? Sane and guilty. So say you are.
No reaction from Sheila LaBarre as the verdict is read, but moments later, after the jury is excused, the families of LaBarre's 2 victims are overcome with emotion. The mother of LaBarre's 2nd victim, Kenneth County, weeps as she hugs prosecutor Jane Young. Young herself can't hold back the tears. In fact, all 3 of the prosecuting attorneys cry as they hug the family. Moments later, LaBarre is back in the courtroom. Since she had already admitted to the murders, her sentence is mandatory.
I hereby sentence you to 2 life in prison without the possibility of parole sentences at the New Hampshire State Prison, and you are remanded to the custody of the sheriff.
Again, LaBarre shows no emotion as she leaves the courtroom, pausing only to shake the hands of her attorneys as she's let out.
That's today's 10-Minute Murder, the brief and bingeable true crime podcast. Thanks for listening today. Before you go, if you are not subscribed, make sure you do that. And connect with me on social media. Rate and review the podcast if you enjoy it. 5-star reviews on Apple help out the podcast a ton. Thank you for listening to 10-Minute Murder. Have a good night.